Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing good. December 24th on the Morning Devo with Bo. And hope you guys are jamming, getting ready for Christmas and all that jazz, right? It's coming up quicker than you think. No, tomorrow, right? So tonight we'll be doing Christmas Eve service at the church. That should be fun. As always, looking forward to that, kind of trying to gear up for that as well myself. And today on the Morning Devo, we're going to be going over Daniel 9. So you could always check out the archives at my YouTube channel, Bo Willette, right there. I like it. My elbow's on the desk, so it's easy to point right there. So just go to YouTube and type in my name, Bo Willette. And you will get to my page, and there is the playlist and all the different books of the Bible. We're going to be finishing the Bible really soon. It's not going to take too much longer, and we're going to be done with all the Bible books, pretty much. Besides, I think, 3 of the Gospels. I just went through one of the Gospels, all the New Testament, and then went back to Genesis, and now we're ripping through it. So Daniel 9. If you enjoyed Daniel 8, you might enjoy Daniel 9 too. It's pretty powerful. Love these. And again, from a guy who didn't grow up around this stuff and wasn't raised around the Bible at all, I find this kind of literature just absolutely fascinating, this prophetic literature in the Bible, because it is so precise. It's so specific. The book of Daniel is incredibly detailed. And, you kind of go, man, if this is really true, meaning if Daniel really wrote this hundreds of years before the time, these times, and even farther in the future than just 200 years, I mean, all the way to the end of time, so to speak, the last days, if you will. I mean, it's really remarkable. And it's supernatural. I mean, it's just, who can be so specific other than, deity, right? Someone who knows the end from the beginning. Hence why it's called prophetic literature. So it's almost like the God of the Bible wants to throw his credentials down and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make sure everybody is without excuse. I'm going to have a trail of evidence for you guys. And if you want to look into it, it's right there. You can refuse, but it's right there. And it certainly is. Daniel chapter 9, let's go into it. It says, it was the first year of the reign of Darius the Mede, the son of Ahasuerus, who became king of the Babylonians during the first year of his reign. Medes, Persians, in Babylon. And it says, and I, Daniel, learned from reading the word of the Lord as revealed to Jeremiah the prophet that Jerusalem must lie desolate for 70 years. Okay, so Daniel was a guy of the book. He was a guy who actually read the Bible. I find that really, really cool. Daniel is reading the book of Jeremiah, of all things. I mean, don't you just find that cool? It kind of leads me to think, like, what are you reading in difficult times? When times are tough, really, what are you, getting in? What are you turning to? And this is what I think so cool about Daniel, is Daniel actually got into what we would say is the Word, or got into the Scriptures, and really to figure out what God is saying. Hey, what is God saying? And I love that Daniel's an inquirer. He's a guy who's really wanting to know. He's not just sitting around kind of with, Cheetos and just watching football all the time. And I know that kind of bums people out because we all love our sports and stuff like that. But, it's like, it's, let me put it this way. If you're really scientific and you say, oh, I believe in science, like I used to, right? Growing up, Southern California progressive, Well, the most scientific fact is that you're going to die and I'm going to die. That's beyond dispute. It's going to happen. And if that's the most sure scientific fact that whatever is born dies, and the big question is what happens after, if there is a hereafter, then wouldn't it be the most reasonable thing to look into what is going to happen, potentially, maybe, and find out if there is something to it? It would be most unreasonable to do nothing, or to literally just eat those Cheetos and just watch your life away and not look into potentially what is the greatest, and that is the eternal. And this is why I love what Blaise Pascal said, the mathematician, the inventor, the scientist. Death, what does he say? Death is eternal no matter what state it's in. And that's so true. Death is eternal no matter what state it's in, meaning it's done. When you're dead, that's it. Then there you go, And so wouldn't it be most reasonable to look into potentially any truth of the matter of eternal life? So yeah, sometimes people say they're scientific or things like that, but they're very unreasonable. They're really not acting off reason at all. They're becoming unreasonable. Yeah. And usually when we say we're into science or things like that, just so you know, growing up very secular, progressive, what we mean by that is we don't want God. And I mean, it's not just me that say that just because it's me. I mean, listen, one of the Huxleys had a wonderful quote about that himself, about throwing off the deity, because they certainly didn't want to change their morality, so they got into science, right? It's a cloak. It's what we use growing up, very progressive, to be able to shield ourselves from really that reasonable thing of looking into eternal matters. Is there really an eternity? We don't want to know because we don't want accountability. That's a tough word. And, right? Who wants that accountability? So we go, no way. I'm going my direction. And everybody's picking up a book. Everybody's listening to somebody. Daniel goes to Jeremiah, a prophet who is, 100 years before him, 80 years before him, something like that. And he wants to know. And what does he find out? Hey, we're only going to be in Babylon through Jeremiah. It was predicted 70 years. That's what God was telling Jeremiah. And so he prays to the Lord. Daniel does. It leads him to pray. Notice that. When he's, here Daniel is a Jewish man that is no longer in Israel, has been taken out of Israel through war and dispersed to Babylon, and has been educated in the University of Babylon and become a part of the head cabinet, if you will, of the king of Babylon and the king of the Medo-Persian Empire. And he's been in government his whole life, and he's wondering, is God going to keep us here? What's going to happen? And it leads him to read Jeremiah, find out, inquire, and then pray. And notice the kind of prayer he prays. I prayed to the Lord my God and confessed. Ooh, it's a prayer of confession. Maybe when we read the Bible, maybe it should lead us to a place of saying, Father, forgive me my sins as I forgive those who sin against me. Maybe, just maybe, Jesus was onto something when he said, pray in this way. And confession is a part of the way we should be praying. Meaning, if you're confessing, what you're revealing is that you are a what? Sinner, meaning you have sinned. Yeah, confession is for those that sin. If you don't sin, you'll never need to confess. Some people in the church life, in what I've seen in Christian circles is they are so scared of admitting that they're sinners that confession has almost become obsolete in their life. They no longer have prayers of confession. Remember when you first came to Christ? Man, you poured out everything to God, all your sins. Man, Lord, forgive me of this, forgive me of that, forgive me of that. And it was that vehement desire to be changed. And then, all of a sudden, somewhere down the line, you thought you got it together and you no longer needed to confess. So it became a tool that was no longer in the toolbox. And you unfortunately failed to see that your sins just went to pride and self-righteousness and self-reliance. And you just can't see it. Ooh, man, rough. Daniel, even though he was a spiritual man, a strong man in God, he knew he needed to confess. Should tell us something. It says, O Lord, you are great and an awesome God. You always fulfill your covenant and keep your promises of unfailing love to those who love you and obey your commands. But we have sinned and done wrong. We have rebelled against you and scorned your commands and regulations. We have refused to listen to your servants, the prophets, who spoke on your authority to our kings, the princes and ancestors, and to all the people of the land. This is a beautiful confession. There's really a lot there to kind of go over. Just a wonderful heart, man. You spoke to these prophets and we don't even listen to them. And remember, Jeremiah, Isaiah, man, people didn't like them. People didn't listen to them. People wanted to go the other way. Listen to CNN, listen to Fox, listen to all these different news networks, MSNBC. They were into that, but they weren't into Jeremiah. They weren't into listening to God. They were into science, whatever they're into, but they weren't into, the things of Yahweh, So it says, Lord, you are in the right. But as you see, our faces are covered with shame. This is all true, including the people of Judah and Jerusalem and all Israel, scattered near and far, wherever you have driven us because of our disloyalty to you. Notice it says you are right. Is that my heart? You're right, God? Or am I still fighting God? No, God, you're not right. Oh, I don't want to believe in God. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, there's no doubt. I'm going to find evidence that there is no God. And blah, and just fighting. You just keep on fighting. Hey, man, if there is no God, then there's no use in arguing that there is no God because there's no God. So your argument of trying to get rid of God almost like proves that there probably is a God. And I never thought that way when I was growing up an atheist. You know why I always argued against God? Because in my heart, I didn't want there to be a God. I didn't want there to have that accountability. So I fought it tooth and nail. And so Daniel says, hey, you are right. We are wrong, right? And you've dispersed us all over the place. And that's because we've sinned against you. He says, but the Lord our God is merciful and forgiving, even though we have rebelled against him. We have not obeyed the Lord our God, for we have not followed the instructions he gave us through his servants, the prophets. All Israel has disobeyed your instruction and turned away, refusing to listen to your voice. Now notice, not only does Yahweh have the most harshest words against Israel, pretty radical, but also Daniel admits, hands down, right? No argument, that Israel is a mess and has totally refused to listen to their God. And so stubborn, stiff-necked folk, right? So it says, and Daniel's one of the, if you will, the better Israelites. It says, so now the solemn curses and judgments written in the law of Moses, the latter part of Deuteronomy, the servant of God, have been poured down on us because of our sin. You have kept your word and have done to us and our rulers exactly what you warned. Never has there been such a disaster as happened in Jerusalem. Every curse written against us in the law of Moses has come true. Was Israel under the curse? Yes. And that's gnarly to hear, right? You say that today, man, people, that's the fighting words. What? No, what? I mean, Daniel says, no, we're under the what? Curse. The curse of what? The book of Deuteronomy at the very end. This is what's going to happen if you don't obey me. Man, it'll be a curse. You will face all these consequences. Yeah, judgment will happen to Israel. Man, some gnarly words to the Hebrew nation, for sure. And it says, therefore, the Lord has brought upon us the disaster he prepared. The Lord our God was right to do all of these things, for we did not obey him. Verse 15, that's where I'm at. O Lord our God, who brought lasting honor to your name, you brought lasting honor to your name by rescuing your people from Egypt in a great display of power. But we have sinned and are full of wickedness. So Daniel, the righteous, a really righteous Israelite, calls his own people wicked. Pretty radical. And he says, in view of all your faithful mercies, Lord, please turn your furious anger away from your city Jerusalem, your holy mountain. All the neighboring nations mock Jerusalem and your people because of our sins and the sins of our ancestors. Hey, has anybody, in our day mocked the Jewish people because of their sins? Yeah. Many people do. Many people notice that there's a lot of Hebrew descendants that are in positions of power all over the place. And a lot of people mock them, right, for their sins, kind of what they've done, what they've been involved in, what industries they've built. And so this is true. Daniel says it. Man, all the nations will mock us. They're going to mock Jerusalem and your people because of our sins and the sins of our ancestors. O Lord our God, hear your servant's prayer. Listen as I plead for your own sake. Lord, smile again on your desolate sanctuary. Oh my God, lean down and listen to me. Open your eyes and see our despair. See how your city, the city that bears your name, lies in ruins. We make this plea, not because we deserve help, but because of your mercy. See, that's the idea of mercy. You do not deserve it. I do not deserve it. When in a relationship, you can't give mercy if someone's not doing something wrong. The only way you can have mercy, blessed are the merciful, is if someone isn't doing something right. The inference is that this is the inference is that you are going to do wrong, and you're going to need mercy. And that mercy, a Christian is to extend mercy because we of all people realize that we are defective. We are tainted with sin in us, everybody. And so mercy is needed. Daniel says mercy is needed on me. It's not that we deserve. What if you opened up every Christmas present and you go, oh, I deserve this. Oh, I open up this one. I deserve that one too. And you open up your third one and you're like, wow, that's a great one too. I'm glad I deserve this too. Man, I deserve this. I deserve that. I deserve this. I deserve this. You'd be like, by the fifth present, you'd be like, okay, that's enough. Right? Now you need mercy, right? Because of your pride and your arrogance and all that. It's a beautiful thing when someone gives you mercy. And you see Daniel saying, we need mercy. Do you need mercy? The only reason why that would bother you is if you somehow have a problem with understanding that you are a sinner and that you're sick and that you need a doctor, like a spiritual doctor. Then mercy would offend you. I don't need a doctor. You're telling me I'm sick? I'm not sick. What are you talking about? I don't need mercy. No, not at all. I deserve everything I got. I mean, it's all me. Rough, right? That's a rough way to go, man, in life. That kind of arrogance, that kind of incredible pride, self-reliance. Because there's going to come a day where your self-reliance isn't going to work anymore. Your body's going to fall apart. Your brain might want to be self-reliant, but your body won't listen. It'll die. And at that point, you're going to need all the mercy that anyone can give you. So it says, "O Lord, forgive. Listen and act. For your own sake, do not delay, O my God, for your people and your city bear your name." Okay, so what a cool prayer. Prayer of confession. There's a lot to mimic in this prayer. It's one of the better, I think, confession prayers in our Bible. It's one that you might want to reread and really kind of pick apart and ask that question, is my prayer life like this? And remember, we're talking about Daniel, a pretty right-on dude. And remember, he has some pretty hard words to his own people, right? To Israel. So now we get into this latter section of Daniel chapter 9, and I'm going to read it, and we'll just kind of be blown away by all the specifics of it. It says, "I went on praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people, pleading with the Lord my God for Jerusalem, his holy mountain." Remember, the temple was destroyed by Babylon. "As I was praying, Gabriel, whom I had seen in the earlier vision, came swiftly to me at the time of the evening sacrifice. He explained to me, 'Daniel, I have come here to give you insight and understanding. The moment you began praying, a command was given, and now I am here to tell you what it was. For you are very precious to God. Listen carefully so that you can understand the meaning of your vision, of the vision. A period of 70 sets of 7 has been decreed for your people and your holy city.'" Remember, that's what Daniel was praying about. The city of Jerusalem and Israel. And so when it talks about holy city, people, it's talking about Israel. It's talking about Jerusalem. That is the theme. And so it says to finish their rebellion, to put an end to their sin, to atone for their guilt, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to confirm the prophetic vision, and to anoint the most holy place. Now listen and understand. 7 sets of 7 plus 62 sets of 7 will pass from the time the command is given to rebuild Jerusalem until a ruler, the anointed one, comes. Jerusalem will be rebuilt with the streets and strong defenses, despite the perilous times. Sounds like this is a real specific prophecy about the anointed one. Now, we've been waiting for this anointed one throughout the Bible for a long time now. From the book of Genesis on, we've been waiting for this anointed one, this son, this Messiah person, this Yahweh in human flesh that the Old Testament speaks of, that God will speak to his people. He will judge from Jerusalem. He will go to the temple and instruct the people himself. It'll be pretty radical. So we've been waiting for this. And we get into these really cool specifics. There's a lot here to kind of pick apart and go through. And man, there's some wonderful books. Sir Walter Anderson, The Coming Prince, is one of those classics on the study of Daniel chapter 9. There's also John Walvoord's book on, I think it's the rapture question. That if you read that, man, you'll get all into this as well. And it'll be a wonderful study. And but here you get into the 62 sevens, 7 sevens, blah, blah, blah. Man, all this, and it's all this breakdown of specific years. Unbelievable. It's a date. It's a little calendar that Gabriel's giving Daniel. Hey, this is how many years it's going to be, and then Jesus is going to be on the scene. Now, it's interesting when Jesus rode into Jerusalem, of all places, the place, right, that Daniel's talking about, before his crucifixion, he cries over the city. And he says, if only you knew the day of your visitation. Meaning Jesus says there seems to be a specific day that you were to know. Israel was to know that their anointed one would come to Jerusalem, of all places, the place that Daniel's praying about. And yet the people were not prepared. They weren't ready for the anointed one. Jesus is alluding to this idea that there was a specific day that was spoken of by Daniel, meaning there's this calendar that Gabriel's given Daniel of the exact day that the anointed one, this Messiah, would be in Jerusalem. And so when Jesus gets there, he cries over them and says, you have not known the day of your visitation. Wow. What a trip. If Jesus gave you a timeline of when things exactly were going to happen, would you pay attention? See, the Bible gives gave Israel the exact name of the Messiah, the kind of birth he would come into the world, when he would come into the world, where he would share, all kinds of specific information, including the day of his arrival into Jerusalem. And they still were not ready. Isn't that crazy? See, we are so lost that God can literally give us a timeline in the sky. He could give us, symbols and signs and this and that, and we would be lost. We would be captured by Mickey Mouse. We would be captured by some caricature, that would get our minds away from the timeline. The Bible has already laid out what's going to happen in the very end. But yet, how many people are ready? There was that old song in the 1970s, right? I wish they'd all be ready, right? What is it? There's no time to change your mind. The sun has come and you've been left behind. How many people are concerned about other things? Oh, I want to go do this. I want to go do that. But the timeline's right there. It's evidence, but you just don't want it. That's how I was, for sure. And it says, so now listen and understand. This is verse 25. It says 7 sets of 7 plus 62 sets of 7 will pass from the time of the command is given to rebuild Jerusalem until the ruler, the anointed one, comes. Jerusalem will be rebuilt in the streets and strong defenses despite the perilous times. I read that. After the period of 62 sets of 7, the anointed one will be killed. Okay. And it says, appearing to have accomplished nothing. And a ruler will arise whose armies will destroy the city and the temple. Interesting. So it says when the anointed one comes, there's going to be a temple during that time too. Remember, it was destroyed not too long ago. Daniel's bummed. That's why he's praying about Jerusalem. And it's interesting that the anointed one will be killed and the temple will be destroyed again. Woo! The end will come with a flood, and war and its miseries are decreed from that time to the very end. The ruler will make a treaty with the people for a period of 1 set of 7. But after half this time, he will put an end to the sacrifices and offerings. And as a climax to all his terrible deeds, he will set up a sacrilegious object that causes desecration until the fate decreed for this defiler is finally poured out on him. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, man, crazy, man. This is like awesome stuff going on. What does it mean? Well, it means that the anointed one will come, but he's going to get killed. And the temple will be destroyed again. And there's going to be a people group of a few, and this people group is going to be the descendants of this future leader that will be on the scene. And he will once again go into a temple, another temple in Jerusalem. And desecrate it, do something evil in it, blasphemous, if you will. And then it's going to be wrath. It's going to be a 7-year period, this time where this ruler is doing his thing, desecrating the temple, hurting the people of God, Israel, the holy people, the holy place, Jerusalem. He's going to go after those areas. And it's going to be a time of wrath. There you go, the book of Revelation. Right there in a nutshell. See, the book of Revelation is just a opening, a revealing, hence revelation, of the book of Daniel, of these prophecies 8 and 9, particularly so far, of the book of Daniel. So, but the big application is it's all there. And maybe you're just too busy watching cartoons, and that is more of what's important in your life. But you're just not being reasonable, if that's the situation. You're being irrational. Because the most rational thing to do, again, is to go, if there is a future that has already been predicted, and we can already test the predictions that have already happened in the Bible and see their fulfillment, then we better be ready for what it predicts in our future and be ready for that. So, hey, anyway, I hope you understand that a little bit. Sometimes these things can be a little complicated, but I hope I put it in some real simple terms, just, SoCal kid putting it down, hopefully the cookies off the shelf and giving them to you. So I love the idea of confession, the idea of needing mercy, and that's the right heart. Man, hey God, maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I need you to touch me in every facet. Maybe when I think I'm doing great, maybe that's when I'm most self-reliant, And maybe I have to always come to you and just say, hey, God, I need your grace. I need your mercy, to do a work in me. Who am I? What can I do? Look at us. Look at my people, meaning the human race. Look at us. What have we done? Wow. So is it beautiful that God would visit us? Absolutely. And that's what Christmas is about, right? During this season. Absolutely. It's that he's visited us. Are we ready for his visitation, so to speak? And it just shows that God's not distant. So you guys take care, okay? Have a great one. Have a great Christmas too, okay? Wish you the best. Maybe I'll see you tonight. Bye-bye.